It is absolutely no secret that there was a lot of controversy around Marvel's newest TV show, Ironheart, between review bombing before the show even came out, and just mixed critical reviews altogether. The show has been the talk of the town for about a week now. And as someone who has already made 2 videos on Ironheart, I don't love it as a product. I think it is pretty flawed. I think it has some issues pertaining to the writing. I don't think it's perfect, but I also don't hate it with every fiber of my being. But what I really want to focus on today is the way people have tied writing issues and objective criticism to the quote-unquote woke agenda or the message that is floated around in this space. So if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you're familiar with the channels like Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic and just people of that nature, and they've all made reviews heavily criticizing Ironheart within the last few days. And I think it's perfectly fine to point out the writing issues in Ironheart and to critique it for the poor writing on display, but what I don't like is how people are projecting their own feelings and opinions on the message or the woke agenda and just libertarian views in general onto the products that have them. I've noticed this common trend where whenever anything comes out that is colorful in nature or diverse or seems to be pushing the quote-unquote woke agenda at all, people will be very quick to jump down its throat because they don't like the agenda that is being pushed and they're not actually looking at it from a critical lens and understanding why this agenda is here in the first place and how it portrays to the writing. People in the critical analysis sphere are falsely correlating the woke agenda with bad writing because corporations and Hollywood, who has been pushing this agenda for over a decade, never actually cared about it in the first place and were just using it to make a quick buck. And unfortunately, I think there are many examples of this in Ironheart itself. So, the criminal group that Riri joins is very diverse and very colorful. Now, that in and of itself isn't a problem and is perfectly fine. The problem is the people in Hollywood put these people into place to fit that agenda, check off that political box, but then forgot to actually characterize them. So what you end up with is just a bunch of characters that you don't know, don't understand, don't know the motivations behind, and just don't get why they're in the story at all. And that has nothing to do with the way the person looks. This person could be an alien from outer space or just a straight white person. It wouldn't matter. The criticism should and would be the same because we are trying to criticize the writing, or at least I try and criticize the writing, not the physical person that is on the screen. But this is where I feel people start to have their own bigotry slip into their criticism, and they have this bigotry slip into this idea of being objective. So I watched Critical Drinker's new video on Ironheart, and in terms of the writing and the criticisms I had of the writing, I agreed with a fair amount of them. But then he gets to this point where he's describing the culturally diverse cast of this criminal gang or crew, and he gets to this drag queen, and he just starts hardcore maniacally laughing like a supervillain because he personally, I guess, doesn't like drag queens or thinks that this one drag queen or drag queens in general are creatures of some kind. And it's just this really odd, super disrespectful, and super close-minded approach and lens of thinking towards someone or something that you don't fully understand. And when he's doing this, when he's making this outward display of hatefulness towards this person, this has nothing to do with objective criticism. There isn't a criticism here of the fact that this person isn't well written, or that he wishes they expanded on some other aspects of the character more here or more there. It's just outright bigotry and anger towards the way that someone looks. And Critical Drinker is not the only person that does this. I see many other YouTubers do it. I see many people in comment sections do it, where they will say they are this champion of objectivity, this person who only cares about the writing and doesn't care about politics or anything. They just want to see good writing and they don't care about anything else. But then when they see someone who looks a little different or breaks the status quo that we've come to know, they will make these outward displays of hate and then get insulted or get upset when people say that they are being hateful and being bigoted. When in reality, if you were someone who truly looked at this stuff logically, tried to view things through an objective lens, the physical embodiment in person that is on screen is irrelevant to the character of the writing. And this is why I am personally very frustrated with the way Hollywood has treated this quote-unquote woke agenda, because they've treated it as a money source, something that they can inject into their stories, something that they can easily place into their stories that will just make them more money. But in doing so, they never actually understood why people wanted representation in the first place. And in making these very lazy and very easy decisions, what we're left with is a lot of culturally diverse characters that aren't actually characters because the writing team forgot to make them characters. And this creates this worst of both worlds scenario where people who are already bigots are going to see this and picket it like it's a scab and use it as a symbol that the woke agenda in Hollywood is what's killing storytelling and we need to go back to a different way where this was never a thing. And then on the other side, people who also stand for criticism that are more left-leaning, more liberal in views, and actually like the woke agenda are also frustrated because it's not fair. They're finally getting to see accurate representation in their stories in terms of the way people look, but then these people aren't actually characters and don't get any of the complexity or just general writing skill that goes into the characters they used to see that didn't look like them. And that's why I'm making this video in the first place. The agenda that everyone keeps talking about is not the problem. It's not necessarily terrible in and of itself. The problem is the way people are writing based off of trying to make profit off of this agenda. And if you're someone who's typing in my comment sections that they just don't like politics in their story at all, I would highly recommend you go check out this 23-minute video I made the other day explaining how politics have always been a part of our media. You probably just didn't notice it. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I just wanted to make this video really quickly to show people that even if you're trying to think objectively and critically, you don't need to mindlessly follow the pillars of objectivity in the YouTube sphere because they are human beings and very flawed. But with all that being said, I really appreciate you sticking around, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.